Now we're going to take a look at linear functions. This is lesson 3 from Unit 4, Part 2. When will you teach this lesson? Let's take a look at the big picture to find out. As you can see here, it's taught in Unit 4, Part 2 for linear functions. This is only taught in Math 7 Accelerated. This lesson is taught during the second 9 weeks, and this is a 2-day lesson. So what standards does this lesson address? Where can you find those helpful teacher tips and also the presentation strategies? All this and more can be found in the scope and sequence for the lesson. So as you can see here, this lesson covers Math 7 Accelerated Standard 5, 6, and 7. For your helpful teacher tips, notice that the lesson's main focus is to relate the y-intercept to the beginning point and continue using rate as the slope. It requires students to create and compare tables, equations, and graphs for the problem given. As you can see here, the day one presentation strategies are all listed out and given in increments, and this shows how to chunk the questions. Here's a glance at the lesson itself. What I would like to emphasize is in the instructions, making sure that students understand exactly what the directions are giving them. So I would recommend getting a highlighter, maybe color pencils, so we can pay attention to the individual statements about the different companies. For example, one company, Folders R Us, said they would charge 40 cents for each folder produced. By the way, this is a fundraiser which most students are very familiar with. Another company, Folders Etc., said they would like 20 cents for each folder, but they want a $20 setup fee. So you can see how this is introducing that initial value or the y-intercept. And finally, a third company, Folders and More, said they would only charge 15 cents a folder. However, they do charge a $50 setup fee. Now, one of my favorite questions to ask the students at this point is, which company would you choose? It's very interesting to hear the responses because some of them will go straight for the 40 cents for each folder produced because they see this large initial setup fee. Some of them will choose the middle one just because it's the middle, and others will have reasons because they'll say, well, they'll choose the third one because it's only 15 cents. So that's sort of a hook that you can engage the students with before the lesson gets started. Okay, so for number 1, the one thing I would like to caution you about is making sure that you follow the directions for number 1, and that is to include the process that you use to find this amount. This is an example of what not to do. The problem with this is, once they get down to the bottom and they have to write that expression, they don't have anything to guide them with as far as help goes in order to figure out what this is. If they show their work, if they show the process throughout this column, then when they get to the bottom, then this will be a lot easier for them to figure out and answer. So this is what a column should look like. And as you can see, I feel like the students would have a lot easier time of writing that expression for the bottom row, the nth row, if they have all the work shown down through the column as they work it out. Okay, so another point that I wanted to make about this lesson is that for the graph, the students will need to choose an appropriate scale for both axes. Now, this is very important because this gives you an opportunity to not only talk about minimum and maximum, but also talk about scale. What increments are you going to use across the graph? And so you want to make sure that they're using their table in order to make these decisions and make these choices. Also, for differentiation, maybe you want to choose to go ahead and place those numbers on the graph and then just have the discussion because some of them might have a hard time getting them lined up. I hope you enjoyed this lesson.